Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Kopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jambushnapad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 30, the Activities of the Prachetas. We're on text 24. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya Haraye Hari Medase Vasudevaya Krishnaya Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya Haraye Harimedase Vasudevaya Krishnaya Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya Haraye Harimedase Vasudevaya Krishnaya Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya Haraye Harimedase Vasudevaya Krishnaya Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam Word by word. Namaha. Obeisances. Vishuddha Sattvaya. Unto you, whose existence is free from all material influence. Haraye. Who takes away all miserable conditions of devotees. Harimedase. Whose brain works only for the deliverance of the conditioned soul. Vasudevaya, the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishnaya, unto Krishna. Prabhave, who increases the influence. Sarvasattvatam, of all kinds of devotees. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Dear Lord, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you, because your existence is completely independent of all material influences. Your lordship always takes away the devotee's miserable conditions, for your brain plans how to do so. You live everywhere as Paramatma, therefore you are known as Vasudev. You also accept Vasudev as your father, and you are celebrated by the name Krishna. You are so kind that you always increase the influence of all kinds of devotees. Purport. In the previous verse, it has been said, Grihita Maya Guna Vigrihaya, that the Lord accepts three kinds of bodies, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, for the purposes of creating, maintaining, and annihilating the cosmic manifestation. The three predominating deities of the material universe, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are called guna avatars. There are many kinds of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the first incarnations within this material world are Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshvara, Shiva. Out of these three, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva accept material bodies, but Lord Vishnu does not accept a material body. Lord Vishnu is therefore known as Vishuddha Sattva. His existence is completely free from the contamination of the material modes of nature. One should therefore not think that Lord Vishnu is in the same category with Lord Brahma and Shiva. The Shastras forbid us to think in this way. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samatvenai Viksheta Sapashandi Bhavet Dhruvam. One who considers Lord Vishnu to be in the same category with the Devas like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, or who thinks Lord Brahma and Shiva to be equal to Lord Vishnu, is to be considered a Pashandi, a faithless non-believer. Therefore, in this verse, Lord Vishnu is distinguished in the words Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya. Although a living entity like us, Lord Brahma is exalted due to his pious activities. Therefore, he is given the high post of Brahma. Lord Shiva is not actually like a living entity, but he is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His position is somewhere between Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Brahma, the living entity. Lord Shiva is therefore explained in Brahma Samhita 545 in this way. Chiram yata dada vikari vishesha yogat sunjayate nahitata pratik astaheto yasambhutam apitata samupaita karyat govindamadi pusham tamaham bhajami. Lord Shiva is considered to be like yogurt, Daddy. Yogurt is nothing but transformed milk. Nonetheless, yogurt cannot be accepted as milk. Similarly, Lord Shiva holds almost all the powers of Lord Vishnu, and he is also above the qualities of the living entity, but he is not exactly Vishnu, just as yogurt, although transformed milk, is not exactly milk. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is also described herein as Vasudevaya Krishnaya. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all Vishnu expansions are his plenary portions, or portions of his plenary portions, known as Swamsha and Kala. The Swamsha, or direct expansion, is also called Angsha. All Vishnu Tattvas are Swangsha, direct parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna is known as Vasudeva because he appeared in this material world as the son of Vasudeva. Similarly, he is known as Devaki Nandana, Yashoda Nandana, Nanda Nandana, and so on. Again and again, the Lord is very much interested in increasing the influence of his devotees. Therefore, he is described herein as Prabhave Sarvasattvatam. The Sattvata community is a community of Vaishnavas, pure devotees of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has unlimited powers, and he wants to see that his devotees are also entrusted with unlimited powers. A devotee of the Lord is always, therefore, distinguished from all other living entities. The word Hari means one who takes away all miserable conditions. And Hari Medase means that the Lord is always planning ways to deliver the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. The Lord is so kind that he personally incarnates to deliver the conditioned souls, and whenever he comes, he makes his plans. Pritranayu sadhanam vinashaya chadushkritam dharmasam stapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I invent myself millennium after millennium. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 8. Since the Lord delivers all conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya, he is known as Hari Medas. In the list of incarnations, Krishna is described as the supreme and original personality of Godhead. Ete chamsha kalapumsa krishnastu bhagavan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 28. Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, appears in this material world when the demigods, who are devotees of the Lord, are disturbed by the demons. Purport. Om Jnanitimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Kadirvachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinitarinam Vansha Kapadiribhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There, I'll read the translation again. Dear Lord, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you, because your existence is completely independent of all material influences. Your lordship always takes away the devotee's miserable conditions, for your brain plans how to do so. You live everywhere as Paramatma, therefore you are known as Vasudeva. You also accept Vasudeva as your father, and you are celebrated by the name Krishna. You are so kind that you always increase the influence of all kinds of devotees. So Srila Prabhupada, he would use this term very often, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And aside from that, using that term and explaining and convincing others that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's also the task that Srila Prabhupada was engaging in of explaining and convincing to people that others aren't the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or others aren't God. So in India, for example, probably for a very long time, and it's continuing now, people have conceptions that, oh, all the demigods are all equal, right? Lord Vishnu, Shiva, they're all equal. And they have this whole system, right? The Panchopasana, right? They worship the 5 different demigods, Ganesh and Durga and different demigods for different reasons, right? One for wealth, one for good progeny, one for, right, protection, different things. Yeah, beautiful wife. There's different. And they equate all these 5 deities as equal. Vishnu's there too. And then what to speak of, like Prabhupada would say, oh, India, they're having so many factories where they're producing so many gods, right? So many people, right, gurus or so-called gurus saying that they're God to this day. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada was convincing people, and not different demigods, and not Sai Baba or whatever Baba, and not the living entity. And yeah, I mean, even in the West, devotees, they go out and they preach, they go out on book distribution, or they talk with people here and there, and people have concepts that, yeah, I'm God. And like Vijay Prabhu was telling us the other day, he met somebody on books and book distribution, and the guy was saying, yeah, in essence, right, I'm God. And Vijay Prabhu was saying, oh yeah, if you're God, then what am I thinking right now? And the guy said, I think he guessed something, right, what you were thinking. He guessed something that Vijay Prabhu was thinking. Nope, wasn't thinking that. Sorry. And yeah, you're explaining how you're claiming you're God, but you can't pass a simple test. This is a simple test. I mean, what am I thinking? Come on. Even people who develop mystic powers, and they say, you know, they could have such powers, but anyways, so the guy, I think he appreciated it, right? And he kind of, oh, thank you, and so, anyways. So, yeah, he thanked Vijay and offered respects, and so, yeah, so we have to tell people and explain to them, you know, that they're not God. And yeah, intelligent people, they'll get it. They'll understand. My spirit, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, when he first came to the Boston Temple, Srila Prabhupada was there giving a talk, and then His Holiness Giriraj Swami, he asked a question to Prabhupada. He asked a question, and the question was, there's so many gurus, there's so many paths. How do I know which one to pick? How do I know which one's right? And then Prabhupada said, well, it depends. What's your goal? Do you want to serve God, or do you want to be God? So then at the time, Giriraj Swami was explaining that he had conceptions that, okay, I'm God, we're all God. And so he felt that Prabhupada picked up on that. So he felt that Prabhupada was looking right through him and then passed, you know, through the whole city into his apartment, in which into his bathroom, in which he had a very decorated sign, very nicely painted sign that said, "You are God." He felt that Prabhupada was, seeing that. So he was a little embarrassed, but so then Prabhupada went on to say that, well, if you want to, God's always God. Krishna is God when he's on the lap of Mother Yashoda, when he's on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna's always God. God's always God. Not God doesn't become God by some mystic or some meditational process. So if you want to, so the living entity can never become God, but the living entity can become godly. And he said that Krishna will help you become godly. But in terms of being God, why should he help the competition? As Prabhupada said to him. So then after that, the talk ended, and His Holiness he bowed down, and he offered obeisances to Prabhupada, and he felt really embarrassed because he sensed that that everybody was kind of thinking, oh, this guy thinks he's God, and what's up with this guy? So he offered obeisances for a long time, and he actually didn't want to get up because he was embarrassed. So then, he heard some. The devotees were starting to distribute prasadam, so then he got up, and everyone was smiling and having, and then he sat down and had prasadam, and so yeah, so Prabhupada encountered his different disciples, different people. They have these conceptions that they're God, but as being stated in the purport, nor is Lord Shiva or Brahma or anybody else besides Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But under, you could say, an intoxicated state in material existence, people think all types of weird things and do all types of weird things. First, right, thinking, and then feeling, and then willing. So strange activities or immoral activities, cruel activities, they're all first originating in the thinking process, thinking, feeling, willing. For example, someone told me recently that one of their friends was sleeping at night, and it was like, 1 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden they hear something outside, like someone's messing with their car. So then, they kind of stick their head on, hey, what's going on? And there was some guy in this person's car tinkering with his engine. Yeah, doing something with his engine. He said, hey, what's going on? And the guy, they ran. They took off. So this person, he noticed, the person who was doing this, tinkering with the engine, he looked familiar. It was actually his friend for like the last 30 years or something. Yeah, interesting friend. But so he noticed his friend, and then he asked him later. He said, "Hey, what were you doing? Like, why did you do that?" And the friend said, "Oh yeah, I was really intoxicated, and I was drunk." And he said, "I had this idea that I would tinker with your engine, so that I would mess it up, and then I would go to you later." And I would say, hey, you ready to sell your truck? And then you'd sell it to me for a lower price. So he's messing with his car so he could try to get a lower price. He's intoxicated. All types of weird ideas. So under the intoxication of the modes of material nature, under materialism, under Maya, people have all types of weird ideas. Oh, I'm God, you're God, or the demigods are God. All types of weird ideas. Or that we're this body. So therefore Krishna, he comes, right? He comes, Pritranaya Saranam, and he speaks the Bhagavad Gita. He comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He sends his devotees. And then someone will say, okay, why does he come? Well, he comes to deliver the devotees and annihilate the miscreants, but also he comes to give us something to talk about. Prabhupada would say, gives us something to talk about. Just like this month we have so many, we have the appearance of Rukmini. There's a nice, wonderful pastime of Krishna kidnapping Rukmini in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And all types of different holidays and festivals this month and every month. You have Nityananda Prabhu, you have Krishna Janmashtami, you have Gaura Purnima, you have Nrsimha Dev coming up this month, right? So these are all there, these pastimes, so we have something to talk about. Or else what would we talk about? We come together to celebrate, and what would we talk about? But here we have something to talk about, meaningful. Brahman. Yeah, we talk about Brahman, or what are they talking about? The bars? I don't know. Who knows? You know, it's like, yeah. Pizza, like this sign here. Dayanidhi told me he was walking around the block, and the Sandbox Pizza. They're distributing so much pizza and beer. It's amazing, actually. They have these huge diesel trucks that are dropping off food, like, very often, and beer. They're distributing a lot. Too bad it's not prasadam. But anyways, the sign, Dayanidhi said, it said, pizza, beer, and baseball. You know, it's like the perfection, right? Pizza, beer, and baseball. So, without Krishna consciousness, people are left with not much. So Krishna comes and he tries to sober everyone up through the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and other books. And as Prabhupada says here, in this word by word, it says, Hari Medase, whose brain works only for the deliverance of the conditioned soul. So his brain, his intelligence is working how to save people from material existence. And the Lord is so kind, Prabhupada says, that he personally incarnates to deliver the conditioned souls, and whenever he comes, he makes plans. So Hari means one who takes away all material, miserable conditions. So Krishna makes plans for the upliftment of the conditioned souls, and also the devotees, they also make plans. They should make plans. How to extend the mercy of Lord Chaitanya to the conditioned souls. Srila Prabhupada made lots of plans. He planned to come to America. It was a great plan. And then while coming to America, after coming to America, he planned to create the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, which he did. He planned to print and distribute so many books, which he did and is continuing. And so many plans Srila Prabhupada had. And sometimes the plans that he had, like he had the League of Devotees, for example, that was a plan. And he tried to execute it. It didn't exactly pan out, so he tried another plan. And it happened a few times. Prabhupada had different plans. They didn't exactly completely work, you could say, how he was thinking. But he made different plans and executed plans in Krishna service. So we should do that, and that's what our intelligence should be used for. That's what it means to engage our intelligence in Krishna service, in the service of the spiritual master. And someone may say, well, hey, I'm not a big plan maker. I don't have the ability to make such big plans, or maybe they don't have the facility to execute such big plans. Then make a small plan. Make some plan. Like Navina Nirada Prabhu is giving a book distribution seminar here to the temple devotees, and he was saying that when you go out on a walk or here or there, you just get a few books with you. That's a plan. You have to plan to get the books, with you. Small plan, but it could change someone's life. And if someone says, well, I don't have a lot of facility, or I can't do this and that, and then they could cooperate with people who do make big plans or are making big plans. They cooperate with them. Like Srila Prabhupada had so many of his disciples cooperating with him, and that's how things continued, and that's how things are continuing. So in this in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, there is a very beautiful verse. Okay, let's see here. Chapter 5 of the Madhya Kanda, text 40. Excuse me. Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Okay, so this is, it's 140, excuse me. This is a description of Jiva Doya, or the mercy that that devotees have on souls, conditioned souls. And here I'll read this verse and then the short purport. It's very telling, actually. It's actually very amusing and interesting what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in the purport. So this is the verse. What to speak of being envious of the Vaishnavas? If one causes pain to ordinary living entities, he is considered a fallen low-class person. Even after worshipping Lord Vishnu, if a person gives trouble to other living entities, his worship becomes fruitless. Such a person suffers unlimited miseries. Purport. If a person is knowingly or unknowingly envious of a Vaishnava who is engaged in the non-duplicitous service of Lord Hari, his degradation is inevitable. Of this there is no doubt. Apart from this, if even persons claiming to be devotees of Vishnu are envious of ordinary living entities and give various troubles to them, they are actually far away from devotional service to Vishnu and are not fit to be called human beings. Their worship of Vishnu becomes the source of misery. Their worship of Vishnu becomes a source of misery. Really interesting. Those endowed with an absence of jiva-daya or compassion for other living entities, and yet proudly consider themselves servants of Lord Vishnu, achieve the threefold miseries rather than the devotional service of the Lord. Amazing. So what he's saying is that, okay, those who don't engage in this, in trying to be merciful to other living entities, means spreading Krishna consciousness as much as they can, making plans to executing, trying to do something to do that. They, although considering themselves servants, they achieve the threefold miseries rather than devotional service of the Lord. So typically we don't think that, okay, well, if I engage in service of Krishna, well, that's going to bring happiness. That's what we think, typically. But yeah, here it's saying that it's a whole package we have to engage in to actually reap the benefits of Krishna consciousness. It's simple, but we can't oversimplify it in the sense of we have to include different aspects of the program to our lives. Just like, okay, well, I'll practice Krishna consciousness, or I'll do this and that, but I won't be merciful to living entities. I won't try to spread Krishna consciousness, even in a small way. I won't be merciful to other living entities. Well, it says that, well, then you're going to get threefold miseries of material existence. We'll get threefold miseries of material existence. And then sometimes we wonder why people leave Krishna consciousness. Well, different reasons, but this may be one of the reasons, because they weren't exactly practicing this jiva doya, and then to not practice it, it's not there's not a good result from that. So it's so important, and it's so important Krishna comes, he does it. It's so important Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes. All the great devotees that Krishna sends, I mean, it's of the utmost importance. So we should try to do what we can to help. And in this way, we'll actually please our spiritual master. This is a sure way to please the spiritual master, to try to extend Krishna's mercy. He's very happy with that. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Oh, okay. All right. What about online? No? Okay. All right.
If one doesn't have Jivadoya, or has, you could say, a very weak, or if one has a very weak sense of this, what would you say about developing compassion for living entities and developing desire to preach and things like that?
That's a good question. Thank you. Well, if we read, like this Juhu book came out just recently here, it's printed, available. This is a book that describes Srila Prabhupada's great compassion in so many different ways. And one of the things that brought up that if when you read in the book, they were being harassed in so many ways. And they could have just, Prabhupada said, we could have just packed up and left. But he says, Tatikshava Karunika, we should be tolerant, we should be merciful. So therefore we're going to stay. Yeah, Juhu. We're going to stay and we're going to establish this temple. And this way millions of people are going to get the mercy of Krishna, which it has over year, millions of people. So much prasadam distribution, book distribution, holy name, right? People, so many people becoming devotees. But we could have just packed up and left. So the act of fixing oneself in a location, such as San Diego, such as Pacific Beach, New Govardhan Dham, fixing oneself in a location and then trying to do Harinam, or not just trying to, but by executing, actually doing Harinam, book distribution, and then when people come, trying to take care of them and trying to encourage them and so on. That's an act of mercy. So one thing that's necessary to be merciful is to be steady. So one has to be steady in one's spiritual position, or else how can you be merciful? If we're drowning in the ocean of material existence ourselves, how are we going to be merciful? So you have to be steady, committed. So part of that commitment is, anyways, engaging in the different activities of Krishna conscious devotional service and 9 forms of devotional service. But getting back to that book, Juhu book, if we read such books, we're reading about Prabhupada, we're associating with Srila Prabhupada, and this way we're finding out what Srila Prabhupada stands for. And so much what Srila Prabhupada stands for, and the spiritual master in general. The spiritual master in general means spiritual masters in general. They're representatives of Nityananda Prabhu, which Nityananda Prabhu is extremely merciful. So by associating with them, that we also become merciful. That should rub off on us, their mood. Now, you could say, well, maybe it's not. Maybe I feel it's not. Maybe I'm kind of feeling weak in trying to give mercy to others. Well, you should do it as a matter of duty then. You may not have great taste for going out on book distribution, going out on Harinam, or talking with people when they come. But you do it because it should be done, and that's a mode of goodness. And that's doing something out of duty. And usually, if we're fortunate, when we do things out of duty, even though we may not have taste for it, we develop a taste for it. We develop attraction for it. So yeah, that's there too. Now, of course, some devotees by nature may be introverted, or they may be shy, or so on, or they may be, right? So there's different types of devotees. But we should at least understand philosophically. We should understand philosophically, okay, I may be introverted, I may be shy, I may be, wanting to stay back at the temple and so many things, but we should understand with as much as we can, that this is important. And I should try to step out of my comfort zone. Or at least I should encourage the other preachers. I'll try to cook nice prasadam, I'll, whatever, do something to help, the mission. Yeah, so that's there. And we have to be careful not to... Anyways, I was reading in Vaibhava book, and this is I'm just stating what was there, and it's quite amusing, the history, because there's a whole section in this Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava of the different short biographies of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples. There's about 20 sannyasis. And by the way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, just interesting historical note, but he would initiate sannyasis quite young, actually. Some of them, one of them was 24 years old, 30, quite young. Anyways, Prabhupada was in the beginning days also quite young, initiating devotees. But in the biography of Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Swami Maharaj, B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, he was by nature shy. He was shy and introverted and contemplated, and that was his nature. Although he was a sannyasi, so it's kind of a tough thing, because sannyasis, going out and preaching and meeting people, and so got to be a little. So, but he would do that. He did that for some time, but then it said at some point his his nature's coming out. He was more kind of introverted, and then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made a comment about him. He said, which Sridhar Maharaj said mortified him. He said, "Oh, Sridhar Maharaj, he's an ease lover. An ease lover. Quote unquote, ease lover." So, it said it mortified him. Now, whatever that man, introverted, this and that, and not out in the world preaching. And, yeah. Yeah, finds a groove, and, kind of. Which is, in many ways, you could say it could be a downfall on the in the mode of goodness, because mode of goodness, it's like things are good and nice and pleasant, That's why a lot of the Brahmins in India, for example, it's they're sattvic and they're clean and they're but the preaching is it's tough. It's tough to preach, go out and meet people, and they're challenging and this and that. And you're dealing with the people who are really deep in the modes of nature, so it requires a bit of a challenging, kind of war spirit, actually. And that's why Prabhupada said the West is good for two things: sense gratification and preaching. So it's good for preaching. It's a battlefield. This is like a right. So and we could pray too. We could pray and please give me the power, the mercy, the empowerment, the understanding, to compassion, to extend myself. So, anyways, I know that's kind of a long, drawn-out thing, but does anybody have any last comment, question? Okay. All right, so tomorrow Bhajanarayan Swami will give the talk, Srimad Bhagavatam class on text 25. So, all right, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.